Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So, like the title says, what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be doing a dramatic reading or looking back at an old short story that I wrote for a challenge that I did 4 years ago, in fact. But actually, I kind of have a bit of a confession to make. Actually, this video was not supposed to come out this week. It's supposed to come out 2 weeks from now. What I was going to do this week was I was going to do another write a screenplay in 4-hour challenge videos because the previous videos seemed to have done pretty well relative to how my videos normally seem to do. So I was like, I'd do another one. But the problem is that yesterday I got like 3/4 through filming it and stuff, but I couldn't finish the screenplay and I had other commitments and I was like, this is going to turn into a very bad video, so I just scrapped the idea and just do this one instead because why not? I thought it'd be fun. So before we get into the dramatic reading, I'm going to do a little bit of a background beforehand. So this is something that I did 4 years ago. It was in December and I was doing a challenge in which each week I would write a short story that was Christmas themed in some way. It didn't necessarily have to be a traditional Christmas story, but it needed to be related to Christmas in some way. The point of it wasn't just to write a short story, but to send it to people and get comfortable with the idea of others reading my works. Each week I sent it to like a different friend. And actually in the 4th week, the challenge was to send it to someone completely random, which actually a little bit of MHJ Makes lore here. I low-key kind of used that part of the challenge as an excuse to kind of slide into the DMs of a girl that I thought was cute. And if you're wondering if it went anywhere, it didn't. Because unsurprisingly, people aren't really incentivized to click on links sent by people that they don't even really know. And I suppose it didn't help that the message that I sent was literally like 1,000 paragraphs long because I wanted to like really fully explain what was going on and I didn't want to give off the impression that I literally had like corpses rotting in my basement, which ironically enough probably made it seem like I actually had corpses rotting in my basement even more. But anyway, the short story that I'm doing today is The Coal Collector. It was the first short story that I did for this challenge, and without further ado, let's get into it. So, Story 1. The Coal Collector. Creak. The sound of an old door slowly opening. It was just an ordinary apartment door, in an ordinary complex, in an ordinary town. If you were to pass by it on any given day, you wouldn't take notice of it. Why would you? An apartment complex in a sea of apartment complexes hardly seems fitting for the setting of a story. But to the old man who lived here, this was his Eden, his Genesis. He moved into this building when he was just a young lad, barely even 20. It was here that he proposed to his wife. It was here that they raised the 3 children together. And it was here that he watched them all grow up and move away to bigger cities with bigger dreams. Naturally, a home with this much history is full of ghosts. Not ghosts as in the souls of the dead that haunt the night, but rather spirits of the past. The old man, Timothy he was called, spent many nights here, alone, lost in his thoughts. The routine was the same every night. He would come home from his job as a story reader, brew a cup of tea, sit down at his coffee table by the window, and just look out. He wasn't exactly people watching, and there was hardly ever anything going on outside his window. This was no New York City or Tokyo. The town slept, and it did so no later than 7 p.m. Yet somehow, this simple routine brought him comfort. I suppose that's about all that anyone can ask for. While the old man followed this routine religiously every day, there was one day out of the year where things were different. You see, inside this ordinary apartment, in this ordinary complex, in this ordinary town, was a secret room. It only appeared once a year on Christmas Eve. Now, this was no easy room to get into. You had to follow a set of specific rules to the T. If you deviated from them even slightly, you would never be able to find it. This room only manifested itself to those that lived alone, for they were the only people who would find it useful. They would only be able to enter after dinner time. What they ate for dinner was irrelevant, but they had to have milk and cookies for dessert. No one really knows why. After dinner, they would need to go to the front door of their home and do the secret knock. If they did everything correctly, once they opened the door, they would be transported to the secret room. If not, then they would find nothing, just an ordinary hallway in their ordinary complex. What was the secret room exactly? No one knew. It was lit by candlelight, and the walls were pitch black. So black, in fact, that it was impossible to tell whether or not they were even walls at all, or rather, a peek into an infinite void. In the center of the room was a chair, or perhaps it would be more correct to call it a throne, made out of coal. The room stunk of it, and the floor was so covered in soot that visible footprints were made with each step that the old man took. Solemnly,
He walked towards the throne. He felt a pinch of sorrow and a pinch of excitement, a dash of relief and a dash of guilt. He had visited this room many times in his past, and he always felt exactly the same. He sat on the throne, as he always did, staring off into the infinite void of the room. What was he thinking at this moment? The old man sighed and started pulling a lump of coal out from the structure of the throne. It took a bit of effort, but he managed to pull it free. It rests in the palm of his hand, slowly glowing more and more red as if it were powering a steam locomotive. It was not hot to the touch, but as bright as it was, it could have fooled anyone. The faint whispers of a forgotten era. "Tim?" came the voice of a young woman in her 30s. "Tim, wake up." He felt pressure on his right arm as someone tried to shake him awake. The dark room began to fade away as his consciousness drifted into this coal-fueled memory. The young man groaned. 5 more minutes, please. I'm begging you." "Timothy, you promised that you would drive Marie to her rehearsal today." "Yeah, but would it really matter if she's a few minutes late? Her solo isn't supposed to be until the end anyway, right?" "Timothy," the voice said firmly. He sighed. You're right. Rubbing his eyes, the young man got up and scratched, cracking his back and groaning like a banshee. "Oh, spare me the old man act," the woman said, rolling her eyes. "Look, it's not easy being my age. Tim, I'm 3 years older than you. At this stage in life, a man's body starts to fail him. You're 32. Oh, youth is wasted on the young. What I wouldn't give to get it all back. If your butt isn't in the shower in the next 5 seconds, you're eating cold cereal for lunch when you get back. But no, you cannot. I've seen you cook before. If you think I'm letting Marie eat one of your abominations, you've got another thing coming, Buster." The young man sighed in defeat. It wasn't easy being a budding cartoonist. The young man was a bit of a late bloomer. He always had a talent for drawing, but chose to do something safe for work. After years of working his white-collar job, he decided to pursue his real passion. Long days and sleepless nights, with tight deadlines and even tighter budgets. Still, his daughter Marie thought the world of him. He was her very own Superman, and if his drawings could bring a smile to her face, then maybe the endless grind of his job was worth it. One rush hour later and he was out the door, daughter in tow. The kindergarten class was going to have a Christmas show, and Marie seemed to be very excited. She had her own solo after all, and she had been practicing it every night, much to the chagrin of her mother. This was the final rehearsal before the real thing, so all the kids knew their parts like the back of their hand. The director had barely finished his cup of coffee by the time that they were finished. They were back home just in time for breakfast. The smell of rice and eggs and pork serenaded their noses as soon as they opened the front door. He knew that it was going to be a good day. But this short experience was all that the old man was going to get. The scenery of his apartment of the past faded away, leaving the black room from before. The coal in his hand was gone. All that was left was soot, which he promptly discarded. He always hated how these memories went. They would start at very random times, and they would end just before anything interesting happened. It was like tuning into a movie on your TV and suddenly losing power 20 minutes in, just as soon as you started getting invested in it. He wondered why he even did this at all. What was the point in reliving the past if he never could experience the good parts, as in the really good parts? He could only experience those during his daily routine at home, when he stared out of the window, and he did that every day. What made this so special? Was it so that he could hear his wife's voice again? No. He could still hear that when he went to sleep, clear as day. His children were gone, but he would still get calls from time to time. He also had plenty of photo albums and videos. His apartment was full of them, in fact. He did find it funny how when you reach a certain age, all the big things begin to fade away, and it's those little moments that tend to stick with you. But no, that's not why he did it. It was something else entirely, and he knew what it was. You see, this room has a set of rules. Each person has their own room, and each throne has a limited amount of coal. Taking a piece is easy at first, but it gets more and more difficult with each lump that you take. You can take no more than 3 per visit. That was the rule. There was, however, a catch to this system. There's no such thing as a free lunch, and powers such as these have their consequences. You get the once-in-a-lifetime experience to relive a memory, but once you do, it is gone. That's not to say that it never happened. It most certainly did. But your memory of it is no more. The old man had been doing this for years, and he was starting to show signs. He had already forgotten the face of Anna? Agatha? Whatever his mother's name was. Someone called him last week, I believe that he said his name was William? His son? He had a son? All he could remember was his 2 daughters, Lillian and Margaret. No matter. He knew that if he didn't take advantage of this opportunity, then he would have to wait a full year to visit the room again. And at his age, a year was no small hurdle. He pulled out a picture from his pocket. It was old and faded and a little bit sticky. He wished that he had taken better care of it, but why would he? This was a picture of his wife in the hospital, a week or so before she died. Something like that didn't belong in a photo album. Imagine how shocked visitors to his apartment would be if they saw that. No, this is something that he would keep for himself for the rest of time. The thing about this room is that it didn't just show good memories, it would also show bad ones. It still worked the same way. They would cut off just before the more important parts, but a bad memory was a bad memory. If you could remove even a little bit of it, that was better than nothing at all, right? The old man stared at the picture of his wife, sick and dying. He looked at that picture every day, but it never got easier. He sighed and started pulling a lump of coal from the structure of his throne. Maybe this would be the one. Maybe. End.
So, what did you think? How'd you like that ending? So, actually, I went back and I looked at the original message that I sent my friend. Because, I'm one of those people, I never delete messages ever. I always have receipts. This is back before I outlined anything. So, when I was writing it, I was initially going for something maybe a little bit happier, but by the end, I was like, oh, well, you know what? Let's make this sad. What other feeling should you feel during Christmas time than intense sadness? I'm not the type of writer that goes for stories that are generally super dark, edgy, depressing, but I'm not necessarily someone that goes for super happy-go-lucky stories either. I tend to kind of want you to experience everything. I think actually of the 4 short stories that I wrote during that challenge, that one was probably the most successful. Ironically enough, the sliding in the DM story is actually probably the weakest story of the bunch, so... But yeah, I thought that was very fun. I'm actually kind of glad that the original video failed. Getting to do this challenge a couple weeks earlier was more fun for me. In 2 weeks for the next video, I'll either just do the challenge again or I kind of have another idea in mind. If I go with it, you'll know what it is because it'll be uploaded. You'll see it when you see it. But anyway, what did you guys think? I'm actually really curious. Have you guys ever done a challenge like this? Even if you haven't, have you guys written any Christmas stories or short stories? I'd like to see them, share them with me. I feel like there's something else that I want to say. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I can't remember, so I'm just going to go ahead and end it off here. As per usual, if you want to read my current series, The Nobunaga Universe, the link to my website is available down in the description. It's a little bit of a different format from this. These days I write screenplays rather than more traditional prosy style. But if this video has piqued your interest, I would encourage you to go ahead and check that out. The website, although it's not the best designed right now, does a much better job of explaining what it is than I ever possibly could, so just click on it and visit it and read for yourself. I do have a couple other short stories from this challenge, so I might do another reading if you guys are interested. Just let me know. Without further ado, see ya!